Hi, it's so good to see you guys. See lots of you, hear others of you. So first of all, congratulations. Give yourself a high five. You did it. You got a grant. Was this the first time for anybody applying for a grant? Do a little dance, say a little shout out. Maybe not. Well, that's great. How you feeling at this point?
Excited and nervous.
Yeah, totally. What else?
It was my first time, and I'm definitely excited. I'm excited to see what comes of it, and then just to kind of see what the next steps and processes are.
Yeah, totally. What else? Lots of feelings. Well, you should feel proud. This was a big deal. This is a lot of work. You have been through the almost entire journey of applying for a grant and receiving a grant. And that started like the moment that you wanted to be part of this on-ramp program. And so y'all were processing some very similar things that you will work through if you decide to apply for a grant again in the future. And rewind your brain all the way back to some of the conversations we had even in Nashville and thinking about like, what do I need to happen in my career? What do I need to do next? That's the way you can approach funding opportunities really from here on out. You can do this again, and you should. You should feel like you've got this first one under your belt, and there are lots of other funding opportunities out there for you. I will say, I've said this before, maybe you've heard me say this. When you've met one funder, you've met one funder. And so things will be different the next time around. There's always different types of grants out there that will be right for you for different reasons or not right for you. So, but you can do this, and you hopefully have by now listened to the panel comments, and if not, I'll go over that here in a minute. If you could mute yourself, there's a kiddo in the background who's adorable, but if you can mute yourself for this, appreciate it. I lost my train of thought, but that's okay. I have lots of things to share with you today that we'll get through. I'm gonna go ahead and start recording so that folks who can't join us today still know kind of what's going on. Oh good, it is recording, never mind. Somebody set that up for me automatically, how nice. Okay, so today I'm gonna show you what to do next, the logistics of how you actually accept funds from the government and follow through with that. I'm going to show you what kind of things you should know as you, Greg, I'm going to mute you, sorry. What kind of things you should know as you go about this whole project, what to do when things go wrong, and what to do at the end of this whole process. So, what happened to get you here? You obviously applied. There was a group of about 6-ish other artists, creative folks, creative professionals who reviewed your application in a batch of about 10 or 12. I grouped them into kind of discipline-based, loosely discipline-based groups. So hopefully there was at least one person in that panel who had a pretty extensive background in your creative practice. And the purpose behind that was 2 things. Because these are public funds, we always put the decisions back into the taxpayers' hands to inform how public funds are spent. So that's really what that group of people was. They represented Hoosiers around the state who could help us make decisions about who should be funded. And of course, they're trained in the criteria and the ways that we've set up the program that you knew about before going into this. So they were making decisions based on the things that our commission outlined as important, right? But the other reason for that is that we wanted you to be able to get feedback on that project and to be able to improve it, make it even stronger, to set you out on the right foot. It's easy. You guys had to pull this proposal together pretty quickly. And granted, a lot of us don't give ourselves more time, even if we had more time, right? But you did, of course, have to hammer out a lot of details. And so this was another opportunity for another set of eyes, 5 or 6 other sets of eyes to look at it and to give you advice on how to tweak things so that you can get a really successful project out of that. So there's a couple of things that you'll need to do next. these funds are yours. But there may be some things that the panel felt was important to either actually meet the review criteria, which is how you get funded in any other scenario, or things that, yeah, that's the reason. But you can also, so there are things that I've outlined in this form that I would like for you to go back and put a little bit more thought into before moving forward. You can also, even if there were nothing required from the panel for you to make changes to, if you heard something from the panel that you're like, oh, that's a great point, I need to adjust some things in my budget, or adjust some things in my timeline, or take a little bit more time to think about how this is going to play out, you can do that. But I need to know about it first. So what happens next is that your application basically gets attached to your contract with the state of Indiana. So you're going to sign this contract online in this form, and this proposal itself becomes really a legal document, right? So these are the things that you've outlined that you're going to do. And so whenever there are changes to that, and that happens often, you know, it's going to happen, of course, at this stage of the game when you make those required modifications or optional modifications, or if at some point in the grant period, the fellowship period, that you realize, whoa, we need to make a few adjustments here. If it feels like it's a significant change from what you've outlined in the proposal, like if it's a change in the who is involved, or the what you're actually doing, or where it's happening, or when it's happening, then give me a call first, and I'll work through it with you. I might have to have you fill out a simple form just to record those changes, and we attach, of course, that onto your contract. So that just keeps you, keeps all your ducks in a row and protects you legally with your contract for the state. So whenever you have questions, issues, hang-ups, I'm your first call. I can either sort it through with you if you just need to talk through it with somebody and figure out what to do next, or we might just work together to make sure that you're still in line with your contract. So let's talk through a little bit of this. I'm going to mute whoever is Deepa. That might be Dee. Hey, Dee. You could mute yourself. That'd be great. You can hear some background noise. Okay, let's walk through this form. So you have been assigned this form in the online system. When you log in and it comes to your applicant dashboard, you can see, if you scroll down on your applicant dashboard, you can find your on-ramp application, and you can find this form that's also linked in the same place. You're welcome to pull it up now if you'd like to work through it with me. I, of course, have a blank one shared on my screen, and this is being recorded whenever you need to go back. I've worked pretty hard to make this feel like a person is talking to you in the form, but there's a lot of, there might be a few pieces that are confusing to you. So again, don't ever hesitate to call, but these instructions are likely written in the form. If you have a question, read it first, right? So the first thing that you'll want to do is come to the required modifications section. If you have not listened to your panel review, or if you have not looked at the panelist comments yet, I encourage you to do that. Even if in the form I've told you that you don't have any required modifications, it's a great form of feedback. So you can find the recordings are linked right here. They'll take you straight to a YouTube video. And the written comments, I'll show you how to find in just a moment. Should have pulled up an example of that, but I'll show you how to find that in just a moment if anybody has questions about it. If typically in these situations, whenever we make other grants, there's not any real contact between you and a panelist. However, this program's a little bit different, and this one's a little bit more advice-based and mentorship-based. And so if you've heard somebody in the panel meeting make a really great point that you're not quite sure how to tackle yet, and you want to follow up and continue that conversation with them, I'd love to introduce you to them. They're all some really incredible people in the state who are more than happy to take a phone call with you and move that conversation forward. Some of them I know have made specific recommendations, have given you specific pieces of advice of people to meet, things to read, and so that they could end up being a great kind of start of a little bit of a mentorship there if you're interested in that. So just let me know and I will make that introduction for you. So there's two types of modifications that you might have in this form. If there's something written here that says, you know, make sure you follow up with this before going forward, then the way that you do that is by writing about it right below your modification response. Makes some sense, right? In this box, I'd like you to basically responds to what I've written there in the required modifications box. In that space, I might have just asked you to reflect on something. And if in that case, maybe there was an important point that was brought up, but the way that I'm approaching that required modification is that you address how you'd like to move forward with it. And in some other cases, I've given you specific instructions on things to change in your application, like maybe a budget item that you can't include or something that you forgot to think about. And I've asked you to go back and actually give us specific details about that. So you're not actually going back into your application to change any of your original answers, but you are recording how you're going to address the things that were brought up in the panel or in the comments in this modification response section. And that, of course, will also be part of the contract that you have with the state. If there are things that you heard in the panel that you want to include but weren't required, you can also write about that here. I'm just going to read over everything forward that I understand kind of the direction that you're going to go and that changed from your original contract, from your original proposal. And that's good. If I have any questions, I will reach out to you. Go ahead and reflect on whatever you'd like to here. And if you don't have any required modifications and you don't necessarily need or want to follow up on anything that were suggested in the panel, you can just type NA in here and you can move on. Any questions about required modifications or optional modifications? Okay, great. If there's anything in this required modification section that you don't know what I'm talking about, you should call me and we'll figure it out together. The second piece is that you will send thank you letters to your legislators. Does anybody know why we ask you to send thank you letters to your legislators?
So they'll send us more money.
Yep, that's a great, simple answer. Your legislators are ultimately the ones who make these funds available to you. It's always important for them to understand how their decisions are impacting their constituents. And so a thank you letter, actually a mailed letter is best. It's them most directly. There are some places where you can email a legislator. If you'd rather do that, that's fine. We are asking that you upload a copy of what you send to them. So we are not going to send it for you. If you're uploading it here, you actually have to send it yourself. But go ahead and tell them what the funding went to, what you're doing with it, that you are an entrepreneur, you're a small business, and why this stuff matters for you to move forward with for state funds. So we're asking that you, hold on just a second, Alexander. We're asking that you write to your state legislators, not your congressional legislators, right? Because these are actually state funds. We do receive funding from the National Endowment for the Arts, but in this case, it's just state funds. What was your question, Alexander?
That was my question. I was curious how many legislators we had. So.
Oh,
sorry.
yes, you have a few, but you're going to want to actually probably, if you don't know who your state legislators are, you're going to want to follow this link. You can type in your address, and it will actually give you the address and contact information for your state legislator. Cool.
I'll tell you
So you will send 2 of these letters at minimum. One of them, you will send at least one of them right now when you accept your funds. And then when you fill out your final grant report, after you've done everything you've proposed to do, then you send at least one more. So you're sending at least 2. At least one in the beginning. If you want to send them to all your state legislators, that's great. And at least one at the end in your final grant report. And if you want to send them to different state legislators or the same ones, that's great. One of these 2 has to be to Governor Holcomb or the governor. So you can do it at the beginning or the end, but before I give you your final payment, then I make sure that I have at least one letter on file that's to Governor Holcomb. or whoever's governor at that time.
Anna,
Yes.
excuse me. I am getting like triple feedback on this. You are speaking 3 different times at different times.
Oh,
You know
no.
what I'm saying? It's overlaid. You're overlapped.
Is anyone else having a problem like that? No? Dawn, I'm sorry about that. Perhaps you should, actually, I see that you're on here twice, Dawn, so I'm going to mute one of your lines. Did that solve anything for you?
I can't even, I'm trying to really focus and listen to you, and I can't quite always get the story. Should I just back out of the thing and not sign up again?
Yeah, try that.
Okay.
And then the recording will likely not have that feedback. So if all else fails, you will have a link to listen to this again later. Sorry about that technical problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any last questions about the letters? Great. So this just like, you know, anything else that you uploaded in an application will only accept one file. So if you send multiple letters at this time and you want to upload multiple of them, that's fine. Just have to consolidate it into one file. If you need help with that, just let me know.
Oh,
Okay. There are some things that that all grantees of the state of Indiana are required to comply with. So you may just want to check that out. Let's check it out together here now. Generally, those are things like if you were an organization, you have to comply with drug-free work and harassment-free workplace, kind of things like that. You can go ahead and read through some of these things. If you have any questions about them, then just let me know. Like I talked about before, you'll be asked to send thank you letters. You're also required to acknowledge your funding in marketing or somewhere publicly in the course of your fellowship. So if you're producing something that has like a flyer with it or something, we ask you like throw our logo on there. Or if you're doing a presentation or something, just something as simple as, you know, these funds are made possible by the Indiana Arts Commission and the Indiana State or Indiana General Assembly, something like that. You only have to do that once through the course of your fellowship period, and you can do it in a few different ways. You don't have to do it in every single possible opportunity, but just like Laurel mentioned, that may end up helping you in the end if more people are aware of where their state taxpayer dollars are going. If you have any issues or questions about that, I'll be happy to give you advice. It's not a huge deal, just ask that you acknowledge it somewhere. A website would work too, a logo on a website or something. And then we will ask you to upload just like documentation of that in your final grant report. So if you want to take a screenshot or give us an upload of a PDF or tell us that you made an announcement somewhere, that'll all work. Fine. Actually, I'm going to flip back here. If you have, like I mentioned before, need to modify your proposal, just contact me and we'll take care of that together. And then, of course, you will need to submit your final grant report by the due date. I will talk more about the final grant report in a moment.
I wonder if we could.
Is there a question?
Oh, sorry.
No questions?
That,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I was wondering, is this Fernando? I was wondering if I can put your logo on my website and say
You can.
sponsor.
Yes.
Is that a good idea?
Yes, you can. Since you're a grantee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
Where do we find your logo?
Oh, yeah. Good question. Okay. So I clicked this additional state requirements for grantees. And then I'm going to click this funding acknowledgement link. And you find logos here. Or if you're on our website, all the way to the left, let me make sure now you're going to put, this is good for me to know. Okay, let's see, how do we find this? Oh, maybe it's resources. Aha, under resources on the left-hand side of the page, you can also find logos for the various programs we require that for. So the one that you'll use in this is just the Indiana Arts Commission logo, even though you'll probably see other organization things listed there. Okay, other questions? Oh. My computer's freezing, so give me just a second. I'll let you think about it while this one freezes. Okay, let's move on. The next thing you'll do is sign your grant agreement. This is really easy, actually. I'm just going to skip past this next section. I'll come back to it in a moment. The grant agreement is right here in this form. Woohoo! Lots of things to read. If you have any questions, this is our boilerplate contract with the state. If you have any questions about it, just give me a call. All you have to do is get to the bottom and type your signature and date it. Okay. You will be able to come back to this anytime. It's going to be located on the dashboard exactly where you opened this form up in the beginning. So if you need to look at it again, this is where it will live. Okay. Have fun reading that. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. So, but a few last things that I want to make sure you know about. The reminders that this deposit, this grant, is going to actually show up in the account. Very beginning of this whole experience, you sent us a direct deposit form, a W-9 form, and it's going to appear in your account as coming from Arts Midwest. That's our partner in this program. They actually, like, we're your state agency. Arts Midwest is your regional agency. So they serve several states around us, and that's just where those monies are coming from. You will get this grant in 2 payments. Like, all of our grants are made in 2 payments. The first one is going to be 75% of the amount that you requested. All of you requested $2,000, so math, I think, makes that $1,500. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. $1,500 is your first payment, which will come, it will come sooner, the sooner that you fill out this form. So once everything is good to go in this form, we've addressed all the modifications, we kind of start that payment processing. I think it says could be up to 90 days before you see that, and but I think it will be less than that. But sometimes those things are out of our control. So, but if you have any questions about when that payment is coming, reach out to me, and I can likely give you an estimate. And then the remaining 25% of that comes when your final grant report has been approved. So your final grant report is due no later than July 16th, 2020. 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you finish everything you've proposed to do in December or whenever you're finished, you can come into this online system and fill out your final grant report, and your payment will come sooner, right? So if you need to get that stuff done, if you're finished with everything, I recommend just get your final grant report in so you don't forget, and so that stuff's fresh in your mind. Okay, I think the rest of that I went over already.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
So so I want to buy my sewing machine before the funds come in. I can do that and just reimburse myself?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. A lot of this stuff happens in a reimbursement kind of way. So sorry about that you have to sometimes front the money yourself. Know that this stuff is taxable income. A grant is taxable income. That's between you and your CPA and the federal government. So you probably will not receive tax forms from us, from the state of Indiana, but just recommend getting advice from a tax professional about how to report that stuff. You know Tax Pro, don't you, Elaine? Okay. What else? Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I recently just opened up like a separate bank account for like all of my like, I guess, business side. So I know the form and stuff that I did at the beginning was my personal stuff. So can I switch that still?
Yeah, you can. Just go ahead and email me right now if you have your email up so that I remember to get to it right when I get in the office. The sooner that we get that set up,
Okay.
the sooner you can get your funding. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Other questions? Yes.
I was curious as far as the modifications go. I've got my panelist comments brought up. Would there be an actual section labeled modifications?
No. the modifications that I need from you will be listed in this form right here in
Oh.
required modifications. So this looks like a question that you're supposed to answer right here. Sorry, that's confusing. This one will actually, I have typed in there for you. You won't be able to change that. Then the second one is actually where you answer that and respond to it.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I wasn't able to find that form just yet, so I apologize.
I can show you how to do that. Other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and pull up, let me see here, how can I do this? Does anybody mind if I log into your account and pull up the dashboard so I can show? Don, you don't mind? Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that right now. I didn't wanna do it without asking, but I can't do it in a fake way quite yet. So log in as you, and I will share my screen with everybody to show where you can find this stuff. Okay. Okay, so when you log in, it looks like that, right? Oh, hang on. All right, does everybody see Applicant Dashboard? Great. When you log in, it looks like that. When you scroll down, you see all of your on-ramp 2019 information. To move some things around here. This stuff is, this LOI is actually what your initial application into the program. The application is your fellowship proposal. The decision doesn't mean anything at all. It's just a form we have to use for the system, but it doesn't mean anything at all, so you can ignore that. But this follow-up form that you'll need with your grant agreement in it and any required modifications. Next steps in the electronic grant agreement one. Come all the way to the right, click edit, and it'll pull up this form that we were just working through together here. This is your final grant report. You can't edit it quite yet because of the way the system works. Sometimes I have to approve the first follow-up form before the second one goes live. So as soon as you do, I recommend that you check that out. I'll pull it up for you here in a moment. That's why that's not live quite yet. This is your award letters. This is your official notification from the state of Indiana that you've received grant funding and all the details about it. It's not anything else that you don't already know, like the amounts and the dates. It's just kind of an official thing. If you want to print it out and hang it on your wall, that's awesome. Or if you ever need to turn that in for things like maybe if you were trying to get tenure for something, maybe that's relevant. You find that there. And then these are your comments. So when you click on that, it will download a PDF of all of the written comments that the panelists had for you. Again, those are not all the required. Those are not the required comments, modifications, it's just feedback. Some of those things I have taken, digested, and then with the panelists' help, decided that these things need to be followed up on before moving forward. And those required things are here in your follow-up form. Make sense? Okay. I'm going to pull up the final grant report so you can get a sense of what that looks like. It's always good to just take a look at it at somewhere near the beginning of the grant period, so that you know the kind of things that you should be keeping track of. Like, for example, as I'm pulling this up, I'll just give you an idea. There are a few kind of data-like things that you're going to need to keep track of or tell us about at the end of the grant period. That's because we receive federal funding and we have to report on some of that stuff. So if it feels really like this is a really weird question to ask, it doesn't even seem like it's relevant to what I'm doing, sorry. We have to report that stuff, so we ask that you do that. I'm almost there. I can show you what I mean. Okay, now you see follow-up, right? Great. Just take a look through some of this stuff. For example, the discipline associated with it. This is all stuff that we have to report. We want you to tell us which counties in Indiana did this stuff that you were funded to do take place. I'm not asking you to talk about everything that you did in 2019 or during this time period. We're asking about the things that you proposed to do and that you use the money for. That's what we want. That's the data we want for this report, right? So if you taught a workshop in Kosciuszko County, or if you attended festival in Ripley County, or took photos of, to develop out your portfolio in Floyd County. Those are the kinds of things you want to know. Okay. There's also just some things for you to reflect on in here in the narrative section. And that's how we understand more about how effective this program was. So really, every time that I go through a final grant report, I am copying and pasting, throwing it into a Word document, and then at the end of things, I kind of like reflect on it myself, and we make changes to the program based on some of the stuff that we hear in the final grant report. So you can be as candid as you'd like to in this final grant report. It will help me in the end to know what was effective and what needs to change. It's not, ultimately, it's not that you have to make us really happy about how the funds were used. Of course, we want to know that you were in compliance with your contract and that kind of stuff. We're going to ask you to upload, like I said before, your funding acknowledgement. We want to see something that you created with the funds throughout the grant period. If you don't know what that would be, let me know. It's pretty easy to figure that out. Any questions about the final grant report? Cool. I think you guys are ready to go. You've got this. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, not very enthusiastic, but that's okay because I hate when people say that and like want you to cheer about it. Okay, I have complete confidence in you. Once again, congratulations. You guys did this. You're in it together.
Thank you.
As you have any, like I said, if you have issues throughout the grant period, I want you to reach out to me, but I also love hearing about the great things that are happening with the projects you're doing. So send us, tag us on Instagram, send us pictures. Give me a call if you're just excited and want somebody to nerd out with you. You know that. Okay?
This is Fernando one more time. Do I email you? I would like to talk to my whoever reviewed my application. Did you say that I can send you an email?
Yes.
Requesting that
Yes.
conversation? I would love to have that.
Great. Let me know. Yeah, send me an email.
Okay.
We'll figure out which one you are most interested to talk to, or multiple, whatever. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Great. That's great. Other questions? Cool. Well, then get on out there and fill out this form so you can get started on this stinking grant, right?
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.